Welcome back to the community. I'm your host, Chris Cross. Lots of information to give you today, but first and foremost, last night, Monday Night Football was a big one for the Philadelphia Eagles as they took on the New York Giants at home. They're 5-7, and normally you say 5-7, hey, not a big game for a 5-7 team. They're probably not going to make the playoffs unless they win 4 straight and get some help. But if you're the case of the Philadelphia Eagles, they needed a win last night just to get a tie with the Dallas Cowboys for the division, and they play in 2 weeks. And that's exactly what happened. Eagles won 23-17 in overtime with a 2-yard touchdown to Zach Ertz, who had 2 touchdowns on the day, including the game-tying touchdown near the end of regulation. He had 9 receptions, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns in the game. So he played very well, obviously, and helped his team out tremendously. Looking at other stats, Carson Wentz, 33 of 50, 325 yards, and he threw those 2 TDs to Ertz. On the other side, Eli Manning, 15 for 30, 203 yards. He lit it up in the first half, throwing 2 touchdowns, but struggled in the second half. Both of those touchdowns going to Darius Slayton. If you have him in fantasy football, you had a good night. 5 receptions, 154 yards. That's a 30.8 average, and he had 2 touchdowns, including a long of 55. So somewhat of a good game here, a little sloppy. Giants coming in to Philadelphia and leading most of the way until the very end when the game was tied. And then again, Ertz tied the game, and then he got the game-winning touchdown in overtime on the first possession. So the Giants never touched the football in overtime. And now the big deal here is that the Philadelphia Eagles will take on the Cowboys in 2 weeks. Next week's games almost don't matter. Even if both teams win, one wins, one loses. The second week, they'll play each other. And the winner of that game will most likely, barring an odd situation, will most likely win the NFC East. And you could potentially have a 7-9 team with a home game in the playoffs, or more than likely an 8-8 team with a home game in the playoffs. So who do you like in that game? Eagles versus Cowboys. Eagles now have second life. Cowboys struggling mightily. And how will that game play out? I think the Cowboys will win that game in desperation. And I think the Cowboys will still get a home playoff game in the playoffs, but they won't win it. But that'll be a very important game between Philadelphia and Dallas. Regardless of the record, you win the division, you're at least a 4 seed in the playoffs, which is usually at least 10-5, 11-4. So the records will go out the window. So Eagles versus Cowboys, December 22nd will be certainly a huge game. And again, that won't be this Sunday, but the following Sunday. And you can look for the Dallas Cowboys offense to get it together by then and win that game by a good 15, 20 points.
I lay on the couch all day, so what? I dance at the club all night, so what? I make my money how I please, so what? So what? So what? So what? Boom! I lay on the couch all day, so what? I dance at the club all night, so what? I make my money how I please, so what? So what? So what? So what? Boom! I lay on the couch all day, so what? I dance at the club all night, so what? I make my money how I please, so what? So what? So what? So what? I'm driving downtown towards New York City. Got my baby boo and she looking so pretty. Already late for the fight of the century. Sitting front row cause we gotta witness history. McGregor walk into the cage, I'm feeling so tipsy. Saw him pre-fight, he said, who's coming with me? Bet on CM or you looking kinda silly. Dropping everything, I'm about to make a milli.